What if the shadows knew your name? Father Thomas had no way out. The statue wasn't just carved wood. It was a malevolent force, pulling him deeper into its grasp. Would he succumb to the church's curse, or would the darkness swallow him whole? Father Thomas's mind raced. His body felt heavy, as though he was trapped in a nightmare that had no end. He reached for the door, but it wouldn't budge. His eyes darted around the church, but there was no way out. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows stretching long and dark, as if they were reaching for him. The statue had now moved so close that Father Thomas could see the veins of the wood. Dark, twisted, as if the very core of the statue was pulsing with unnatural life. And then, a dreadful realization washed over him. This was no statue. It was a prison, and he was its next inmate. The whisper returned, louder now, deafening. You will stay with me forever. As the voice surrounded him, the statue raised its hand, and Father Thomas felt an icy grip close around his heart. He gasped for air, but the cold was too much. The light in the church flickered, casting long, ominous shadows on the walls. Then, everything went silent. The statue was gone. The doors were still locked, but Father Thomas was never seen again. Days turned into weeks, and the villagers began to notice something terrifying. The church had become more than just a place of worship. It had become a place of dread. Those who passed by the church at night reported hearing footsteps, the sounds of a mass being whispered from within, but no one dared enter. And then the stories grew. Some claimed they could see the faint outline of a figure standing in the window of the church, a figure with glowing red eyes staring into the night. Others spoke of a cold breeze that blew through the village, as though something was trying to reach out. And always, the whispers continued, carried on the wind. Come closer, come see. The curse of the statue had spread, and no one was safe from its call. In the dead of night, a new traveler came to the village. His name was Marcus, a scholar of the supernatural drawn to the rumors of the haunted church. With a heart full of skepticism and a mind eager to disprove the tales, he ventured into the church alone. The villagers warned him, but he refused to listen. As he stepped inside, the temperature dropped. The church was eerily quiet, and yet the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He reached the altar, and there it was. The statue. The saint, its wooden face now twisted and malformed, its eyes burning with a cold, unnatural light. Marcus raised his lantern higher, but the shadows seemed to move with him. The floor creaked beneath his feet, the air thick with a presence that pressed down on him. He turned to leave, but the doors wouldn't open. A voice, cold and deep, whispered from the shadows, "You've come for me, and now you will stay." Marcus fell to his knees, but the darkness swallowed him whole. Marcus paced frantically in the dark, his breath shallow as he tried to push open the heavy wooden doors. The church, once peaceful and holy, now felt like a living nightmare, a place where time itself seemed to bend and stretch. The door wouldn't budge. He pushed with all his might, his palms sweaty, his pulse racing. Every second that passed felt heavier, suffocating, as if the church was growing around him, closing in like a tightening noose. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. It wasn't coming from anywhere he could see. It was just there, vibrating in the very walls of the church. The shadows, thick and oppressive, seemed to shift around him. He could swear he saw shapes, figures moving just out of the corner of his eyes. But when he turned, there was nothing but darkness. Then the whisper came again, this time louder, more insistent. "You shouldn't have come." It was the voice from the shadows, the voice of the statue. It had followed him into the church. It had always been there, waiting. Panic gripped Marcus as he realized the truth. There was no way out. The doors weren't just locked. They were a lie. The church didn't have exits. It didn't have freedom. It had only the hungry, unyielding darkness. I will make you stay. The voice was everywhere now, filling his ears, his mind, wrapping itself around his soul. His heart pounded as he stumbled back toward the altar, eyes frantically searching the walls. The statue that had once seemed like nothing more than an ordinary carving of a saint, wasn't where it had been. It was gone. And then he saw it. In the shadows, standing in the corner of the church, was the figure. Its eyes were glowing red, burning like embers. It wasn't the saint's face he remembered. It was something twisted, monstrous, eyes wide and filled with a hunger that made his blood run cold. "Join me," the voice purred. Marcus wanted to scream, to fight, to flee, but he couldn't move. His body refused to obey him. He was paralyzed, trapped in the church's grip, just like every soul before him. The statue's form began to shift, its wooden limbs creaking, bending unnaturally. The shadows stretched out like hands, pulling him closer, closer to the altar. And then the floor beneath him cracked open. The darkness rose from the ground like smoke, thick and choking. It swallowed him whole. A soul has been claimed. But the church isn't finished yet. Who will be next? The walls are closing in, and soon everyone will be trapped. Stay tuned for the next chapter where the horrors of the church spread further, and its hunger grows stronger.